For my author-illustrator project, I would like to tell you about Bill Peet. Most of his books are from 40 to 50 years ago, so you might not know who he is. But every year I read his books to my class, and the kids always love them. Bill Peet grew up in Indianapolis, Indiana, where he was raised along with his brothers by his mother and grandmother. His father was drafted into the Army during World War I, and while he never went to Europe, he didn't return to the family after the war. This didn't really bother Bill. As his father left before he was 3, he didn't really know any different. Bill's favorite hobby was drawing. He spent hours at a time in the attic sketching away. When he entered grade school, he had an art class once a week, but the teacher decided what the students were to draw. So instead, Bill would draw in the margins of his textbooks on his lap under his desk. When the school had used book sales, the other students loved Bill's textbooks due to the doodles he had drawn in them. In the summers, Bill, his brothers, and their friends would catch animals in a nearby creek. They also went swimming in the shadow of a train trestle. Bill loved trains and would sneak peeks at them at the station in downtown Indianapolis. During his childhood, he also spent time on his grandfather's farm. Many of these youthful experiences would later find their way into Bill's books. Bill struggled his way through high school, but after enrolling in art classes, his confidence spilled over into academic classes, and he landed a scholarship to the John Herron Art Institute of Indianapolis. Here he excelled due to the lack of academic instruction at the institute. It was all focused on drawing, painting, and designing. He also met his future wife in their very first class. They later married and had 2 sons, Bill Jr. and Steve. Bill left school after 3 years to devote more time to earning money. He drew department store ads, illustrated greeting cards, and entered his paintings into different contests. None of these were steady or lucrative forms of income. While visiting friends at the art school, Bill heard the Disney studios needed artists. Although he was not interested in cartoons, he needed a job, so he sent in an application and a few drawings. He started off as an in-betweener, drawing the multitude of tedious images that get characters from one position to the next. One day the studio asked for ideas for boogie monsters and creatures for a new film they were working on, Pinocchio. Bill turned some in, and after several weeks of hearing nothing, forgot about it. He almost quit after tiring of drawing in-betweeners of Donald Duck, but he had to go back the next day to retrieve his jacket, and as luck would have it, that morning there was a note on his desk asking him to report to the story department. Bill had made the jump, although he was not immediately credited for his work in the film. Eventually, Bill would go on to become a story man, working on Dumbo, Cinderella, Alice in Wonderland, Peter Pan, Sleeping Beauty, 101 Dalmatians, and The Sword in the Stone, to name a few of Disney's main films. I mentioned his work on Disney movies to my students this year, and a couple of weeks later, one of my students said they saw his name while watching The Sword in the Stone. She was very excited about it. Bill tried to keep up with painting while he worked at Disney, thinking he could do that once his cartooning career was over, but he found that after years of animating, he had lost touch with painting. He tried his hand at drawing for magazines, and eventually realized he enjoyed telling bedtime stories to his sons so much that he wondered if other children would enjoy the stories too. Most of Bill's early stories started off more as animations, a multitude of pictures showing the story's action with very few words of dialogue, just like the storyboards he drew for Disney. In 1959, he found success with his first book, Hubert's Hair-Raising Adventure, about a lion whose mane catches fire. He jumps into a creek to put it out and now has to grow a new one. Bill has written 35 children's books. Some that are favorites in my classroom include Chester the Worldly Pig, who doesn't want to become bacon, so he teaches himself a trick and tries to run off to the circus. Jennifer and Josephine is a friendship story between Jennifer, an old car, and Josephine, a stray cat. Smokey is an old steam engine who can't compete with the new diesel engines. Cowardly Clyde is a knight's horse who must overcome his cowardice in order to save Sir Gallivant. In Farewell to Shady Glade, local animals must find a new home when they realize theirs is being bulldozed. Ella is a spoiled elephant who runs away from the circus. And The Ant and the Elephant, wherein Little Ant asks a turtle for help, but the turtle refuses, which turns into a chain reaction of unhelpful animals until a friendly elephant comes along to right the wrongs. I think Bill Peet's greatest contribution to children's literature is the themes he uses in his stories. Bill has said, "I don't like to get preachy, but when it works well with the story, I'll bring out a point, and at the same time, I hope to make it entertaining and fun to read." Despite not liking to get preachy, his stories often have an obvious takeaway. The ones that are not obvious still have a nice quiet moral to them, such as Jennifer and Josephine's friendship. He often writes about characters that have to overcome hardships. They don't give up when discouraged. Some keep a positive attitude throughout. Others have moments where they might give up, but their tenacity comes through in the end. Chester runs into problem after problem after problem, and just when you think something will finally go right, it doesn't. Yet through it all, Chester doesn't give up. This is a fun topic to discuss with my students. We list all of the terrible turn of events that keep happening to him and just read on in disbelief that he hasn't given up yet. Ella, too, puts up with a lot while learning just how much she misses the circus. Let's look more closely at Ella. Ella is the star of the circus, but one rainy day the train gets stuck in the mud and Ella is asked to help out. She is astonished, and her caretakers know it. They attempt to make it up to her by bathing her and washing her costume, but the day the train moves on, Ella hides behind a fence unnoticed. She soon regrets her decision, but realizes she can't catch up to the fast-moving train. At the end of a long day, she stops to eat some hay in a farmer's field, not thinking it might belong to someone. The grumpy old farmer then locks her up in his barn and threatens her often as she does work around the farm, such as plowing the fields, pulling weeds from the garden, picking apples, mowing the lawn, gathering eggs, feeding the pigs, and watering the flowers, which is the only job she enjoys, as it reminds her of the flowers she used to receive on opening night of the circus. The farmer's dog usually accompanies Ella as she works, but one day when she tries to escape, the dog alerts the farmer, who brings her back to the farm. The reader sees the seasons change and a whole year passes by. One spring day, Ella hears the circus train and busts out of the barn. This time, the dog leads the farmer off in the wrong direction, as he can see that Ella has suffered enough. Ella is finally reunited with her circus friends. The next day, as the circus packs up, Ella carries more than her share to help. While everyone at the circus is amazed, they don't know what had happened in the past year. Ella has been through so much trouble and work that she now understands the difference between being forced to work by someone who only wants you for what you can do for them versus helping a friend in need. Now she's glad to be able to help those she cares about and who care about her. One of the reasons I love Bill Peet is the vocabulary he uses in his stories. He uses big, sometimes unusual words, but always provides enough context for readers to understand. There are words that I always draw my students' attention to as I read, but this year I was surprised when someone asked what a hound was. Bill could have just said dog, right? But since he used the word hound, that student and any others who might not have known but didn't want to ask learned something new. It also brought up a conversation about different types of dogs and what hounds are known for. That hound isn't just another word for dog, but it's a specific type of dog. Jennifer is an old car living in a junkyard. Josephine, the stray cat, makes her home on Jennifer's back seat. One day, a man known only as Mr. Frenzy, due to his hurried state, comes along and buys Jennifer. Of course, Josephine does not want to be left behind. Jennifer is shocked by how much things have changed out in the world, and Josephine is worried that Mr. Frenzy is pushing her too hard and fast. They speed through a busy city, down bumpy country roads, and race around a slow-moving truck going up a big hill, only to be run off the road by another truck coming from the other direction. This blows out one of Jennifer's tires, but Mr. Frenzy pops a new one on and continues like nothing happened. They narrowly cross the train tracks in time to avoid a train and head into a storm traveling over hilly and muddy roads. Jennifer slips off the road and becomes stuck in the mud. Mr. Frenzy hurries off with his suitcases, leaving Jennifer and Josephine alone in the woods. The next morning, Josephine finds a boy in a barn and meows for his attention. He thinks she might have kittens, but he can't find any. Finally, he follows her out to Jennifer, and his father helps pull her out of the mud. The boy wants to keep the car, but the father says it doesn't belong to them. Eventually, after no one comes looking for the car, they begin driving it around, never going more than 20 miles an hour, the perfect speed for Jennifer. And of course, Josephine continues to go along for the ride, because really, Jennifer belongs to her. This sweet story shows the importance of a bond between two unlikely friends. One of the reasons my students love this book is Mr. Frenzy. It is open-ended and up for interpretation why he is in such a big hurry. From the very beginning, he says he likes to buy old cars and run the wheels off of them, and that's exactly what he does before leaving Jennifer and Josephine on a dark and stormy night. He's even in such a hurry that he walks off in the middle of the storm. Unbelievable! What could have possibly been so important? Bill Peet has said, "I am an author and illustrator of children's books, and yet, I must confess, I don't do the books for the kids. When I'm working on a book, I'm somewhere else, at the circus, or a rustic old farm, or deep in a forest, with no thought of who might read the book or what age group it would appeal to. I write them so I can illustrate them." This quote from Bill shows just how important drawing was in his life, starting from the drawings he did at a young age before ever starting school. Many of his books started off as doodles of his favorite things to draw, namely animals and trains. Bill has also said, "There is a theory that everything an author writes has some autobiographical aspects to it, and if this is true, Chester is the one book of mine that reflects my past more than any others." Bill's story included the Indiana farming countryside, trains, and circus from his youth. The farmer from Ella and Mr. Frenzy from Jennifer and Josephine seem to be modeled after Bill's grumpy grandfather, who used to have his wife, daughters, and grandsons take care of the farm while he sat on the porch in the mornings and then took a nap in the afternoons. Bill has achieved recognition for his animating years as well as his illustrating. He has won the Pioneer Award and the Annie Award in the field of animation. His short film Goliath 2 was nominated for an Academy Award, and his autobiography is a Caldecott Honor Book from 1990. Bill's other interests are very obvious as he incorporated them into his books. I love the message this can give kids, that something they enjoy right now could become something they do for the rest of their lives. The things that were important to Bill as a child found their way into his stories. Bill Peet does not have any social media accounts, as his work is from so long ago, and he passed away in 2002. There are a few fan pages on Facebook, but sadly there is nothing of substance on them. His website, billpeet.com, contains a wealth of information, with a biography section, a section for his years at Disney, and a section for his books. Inside each of these sections is more information than you would expect. My favorite is the part for his unfinished stories. It is intended to show the creative process, with original sketches and ideas from the notebooks he used to keep. Of course, you can watch the old Disney movies that Bill was a part of, and his old goofy shorts are available on YouTube. Just search for Tiger Trouble, A Night for a Day, California or Bust, How to Play Football, or African Diary. Adding Goofy Short to your search will help you find the correct video. While trying to hunt down anything Bill Peet available online, I stumbled across I Read Storybooks on YouTube and JustBooksReadAloud.com. Both of these offer stories of all kinds, including several of Bill Peet's in read-aloud form. After finding these, I will definitely be telling my students and other teachers about them. While I am very familiar with Bill Peet from reading his books to my class, I found most of the information for this project by reading Bill Peet, an autobiography, and from billpeet.com. I hope you've enjoyed my presentation of his life and work.